Happy Thursday, family scholars. So today I want to engage you in a read aloud. I'm going to ask you a question and I want you to respond to the question using your portfolio feature on Dojo. Remember that you can type your response out, you can send a video, or you can write it out and you can send me a screenshot. Today's book is another biography. The title is Celia Cruz, Queen of Salsa. Remember that a biography is a story of a person's life written by someone else. Veronica Chambers wrote this biography and Julia Marin illustrated it. What do you notice about the front cover? This lady is Celia Cruz. She is singing a kind of music called salsa. Why do you think they call her the Queen of Salsa? And then if you notice that these are some photographs and they have titles and they have some years at the bottom of each of the photographs. What do you think the years written on the photographs tell you? Let's read and find out about Celia Cruz's life. So today as I'm reading Celia Cruz, the Queen of Salsa, I want you to think about the author's lesson or the message. Remember, the author's lesson or the message is the moral that the author is trying to teach you in the story. And as readers, we learn that lesson or moral through the character's experiences. So as I'm reading Celia Cruz, Queen of Salsa, think about that lesson or that moral that the author is trying to teach you. Celia Cruz, Queen of Salsa. A little songbird. In the fabled land of Havana, where the rhythm grows, sweet and juicy like oranges in Florida, there lived a girl. She looked like a girl and talked like a girl, but everyone who ever met her agreed she sang like a bird. Havana is a place in Cuba, and Cuba is a country right below America, and it's really close to Florida, actually. And so this story takes place in Cuba, or they call it Havana. When Celia Cruz was a girl growing up in Cuba, she could never hear the magic others claimed was in her voice. When she opened up her mouth to sing, she heard a girl like any other. But when she sang, her father heard thunder. Her cousin heard the call of the sea. Her neighbors heard a hummingbird. Celia would grow up to be a queen, but she was not born a princess. She grew up in a poor section of town, one of 4 sisters, though the house was also home to numerous cousins. At times, there was as many as 14 children in the 2-bedroom house. Still, young Celia always stood out amongst the crowd. Her mother liked to tell the story of how a tourist bought Celia's first pair of shoes after hearing the little girl sing. And they're all listening to Celia, as you can see in the picture. Like other girls in Havana, she had chores. Some of her friends were charged with sweeping the kitchen. Other girls washed the dinner plates. Celia's job was to sing lullabies to put her younger brothers and sisters to sleep. At night, her voice carried through the windows, rolling along the cobblestone streets like a will or a wish. The people in her neighborhood began to gather outside of her family's front door, begging her father to leave it open. They said, "Her voice is ton dulce, sweet like a azúcar." Her voice, it was said, sent you not only to sleep, but to a nighttime land of angel dreams. And azúcar is the Spanish word for sugar. So they're saying her voice is like sugar as they're listening. Always shy and more than a little independent, Celia mistook the gathering crowds for busybodies, watching every move. Ay, por favor, she pleaded. If you don't leave, these little ones will never get to sleep. Despite her initial shyness, she could not stop singing. In the afternoon after school, she would listen to the rapid fire calls and cries of the pregón. And the pregón is a Spanish word for like a musical announcement. In time, people would recognize the passion and pulsating cries of the pregón in Celia's unique vocal style. So saying that they recognize like the sweet musical voice in her tone. In high school, she began singing in school shows and local clubs. The music that she loved, el son and la guaracha, blended traditional Afro-Cuban rhythms with the flavor of folklore of the tropics. It was a kind of music that sizzled from the joy of being alive. And so something that you might want to know about Cuba is that Cuba was also a place where they had slaves. And once the slaves became free, they began to mate with the Cuban people. And so a lot of the Cuban people have African, what's the word I'm looking for? African descent and African heritage. And so a lot of them look like us. Her father loved to watch this little songbird, watch her spin 100 hearts soaring with her melodies. But he was also cautious. Keep studying, mija, he told her as she hummed old Cuban love songs while absent-mindedly flipping the pages of her school books. You are so smart. Forget about singing. Become a school teacher and make your family proud. Her teachers, however, saw things a different way. Take a chance, one professor told her. With your voice, you could earn in a day what it takes me in a year to make. But it was not easy to take a dream planted in your heart and make it grow in the world. Celia was unknown and did not have the kind of connections that easily open doors. So think about how Celia might be feeling. The fact that in her heart, her dream, she wants to be a musician. But she knows that it will be hard because she doesn't have the connections that will make her dream come true. Still, she jumped at every opportunity. Talent contests at the National Theater and amateur nights on the radio. She never forgot her father's lessons on the importance of education. And after graduating high school, she enrolled in Cuba's National Music Conservatory, where she studied piano, voice, and musical theory. Then in 1950, she got her dick shot. The most popular band of the day was a group called La Sonora Montesera, and they were auditioning for a new lead singer. When they heard Celia sing, the way she made each and every note swing, they decided to give the little songbird a job. At first, La Sonora's public was outraged. They were so upset. Who was this no-name singer fronting their favorite band? The phones of the Havana radio stations rang off the hook with complaints. At home, Celia began to wonder if she shouldn't take her father's advice and teach school. Was she really the ruin of Cuba's most beloved band? She stood by the window, looking out at the stars. She feared she would never join. And Celia asked herself, why do I sing? Is it for fame and fortune and for fans that do not exist? No, she told herself, I sing for my parents, The ancestors and the saints. I sing because when I lift my voice up high, I feel like the first pajaro of the day, whistling Buenos Dias to anyone who will listen. I sing for my little brothers and sisters and the sweet expressions of their faces when they finally fall asleep. Although Celia was seriously thinking about giving up her dream, her bandmates refused to allow her to quit. As a group, they rewrote the history of Cuban music with new arrangements and a fresh, innovative style. By the time she left Cuba in 1960, Celia was beloved throughout the country as the men who made music with her. She even earned an affectionate nickname for her thousands of fans. They called the group Café con Leche, coffee with milk, because Celia's skin was very dark and her bandmates were very fair, meaning that their skin complexion was very light. And compared to hers, her skin complexion is very dark. In the United States, she became a citizen and her talent was rewarded with a permanent contract at the Hollywood Palladium. But once she left Cuba, politics dictated that she could never return. She would never again walk the streets of her beloved Havana. She would never again hear the cries of the pregón that were the bass and treble of Cuba's street life. It was a heartache she carried her whole life through. So she was crushed that she could never go back home. And during this time in Cuba, they had very strict laws. And so one of the laws was if you became a citizen in another country, then you couldn't come back home to Cuba. Still, she kept her heart open. Lost loves made room for new loves. And it was there in Hollywood, that factory town of movies and dreams, that the young princess of salsa music fell in love with a knight in shining armor. His name was really Knight, Pedro Knight. He was the lead trumpet player of the Palladium Orchestra. And while he dazzled her with his high notes, he won her love with his understanding. She told him that her heart would always be split in 3 pieces, and only one part would belong to him. One part of her heart would belong to music, and the third piece would always live in Cuba. Celia knew that she had met more than her husband. She had met an angel who would be her companion and protector in this land so far from home. So she was heartbroken, because she could never go back to Cuba. And now that heartbreak has been replaced with new love. Those are sugar cubes. Celia brought salsa music to every corner of the earth, from London to the Congo, from Brazil to Japan. She recorded over 20 gold albums and is known the world over as the Queen of Salsa. For more than 40 years, Pedro Knight was her king. Celia's performance trademark was a full-throated shout of azúcar. It's a Spanish word for sugar, and the only word many say that so perfectly described her voice. In the fabled land of Havana, where rhythm grows sweet and juicy like oranges in Florida, there lived a girl. She looked like a girl and talked like a girl. But everyone who ever met her agreed she sang like a bird. The bird girl grew into a princess, and the princess became a much-beloved queen. Her kingdom was music, and those who loved her called her not by name, but by the joy she inspired. At concerts, they called her Azúcar, and Celia Cruz never failed them. She sung sugar, sweet sugar, wherever she went. The end. So readers, amazing readers, phenomenal readers. As I was reading Celia Cruz, Queen of Salsa, I wanted you to think about the lesson. Remember, the lesson is a moral that the author is trying to teach our readers, and that's going to help them become a better person. So think about, what lesson can you learn from this story that can help you become a better reader? Think about, this lesson should be a lesson that anyone can learn. Your mom, your dad, your sister and brother. And this lesson will help them become a better person as well. I am going to post this onto our dojo page. Please respond to our portfolio. I look forward to reading and hearing your responses. Peace, love, and all those good things. Look forward to seeing and speaking to you soon. Bye, guys.